Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Loretta Veney, right? Did I say that right?
You did indeed, Kim. Thank you.
I was like, okay, I can't mess up the last name. And Loretta's an author and a speaker, and today we're going to talk about how you can advocate for an aging parent.
Yes.
This is so huge because so many of our, my clients, the listeners, they're all, we're not getting any younger by the day. So let's kind of start off with the question that is probably the most important one, and I can't stress this enough. Why is it important for adult children to advocate for their aging parents?
Because you never know when you might be missing something. And so, we don't want any surprises to come up. And so if you have in your gut feeling that something might be going on that needs attention, you really have to step in right away. So, we're trying to prevent, financial fraud and, there's home safety, becoming in question. So anytime things come up that you think they're going to need help with, they might be falling behind on their bills, not because they don't have the funds, but because they don't remember to, write the check. So anything like that gets your attention right away, I think it's good to get in. I do what I suggest to people to have family meetings. And that's where you think about everybody sits around, and sometimes these conversations are difficult, especially if it might be, maybe it's time for mom or dad or auntie to stop driving. And so sometimes those conversations are face to face. You get a little bit less resistance. You can look into each other's eyes and really, hear their answers, and they can hear you and your concerns. So I think that's the best way to start. Have a family meeting and get their wishes. Because when somebody has a stroke or becomes incapacitated, the last thing you want are all the siblings quarreling over what mom or dad really wants. I'm going to talk to mom or dad before they can no longer speak for themselves. So I think it's never too early to do it. I tell 30-year-olds that. Well, my parents are still like 50, but your parent might be, something might happen next week that we, don't foresee. So the more information you can get before it becomes necessary, the better off everybody is, I think.
Yeah, the big running joke in my family is that we talk about everything at the kitchen table. It doesn't matter where we're eating. We have weird conversations, death, dying, whatever.
But doesn't that help? I mean, that really helps.
It makes all the world a difference in the world because it's with my mom, exactly what she wants because she's very vocal about
my
that.
mother too.
And I just think it helps. My grandparents wanted to be at home. They wanted to stay at home. They had the money to stay at home back then.
Correct.
So it's really important to have those conversations because you just never know.
My mother's big wish was not to live with her children. So we had to abide by that.
I know. I told mine the same thing. I'm like, I don't want y'all taking care of
me. You're not coming to me.
The plan. You dump me somewhere reasonably decent, and I'm good to go.
Oh my God.
But how do you, timing, I think, is everything, because a lot of people don't have those conversations. But when is the best time to speak up, and how do you know?
I think when you're starting to see little lapses, you see some changes that, weren't there last month. And I think that's when it's time, especially if you're a long distance caregiver, that's the time to kind of show up, look them, right in the eye so you can maybe get a feel for, what's going on. I think some of us, me included, one of my biggest, mistakes, my mother's favorite thing was going to Tai Chi class. And it sounds so minuscule, but one day she forgot to go. And when I tell you that was, life-giving for her, she would never forget to go. So I called, I was like, hey, how was Tai Chi? And then she said, oh, I guess I was so busy, I forgot to go. And I remember it was important enough. I remember telling that to my sister. And she said, well, what was she doing? That should have told both of us it's time to go see, and there's something going on. She would never miss it. Even if you tried to take her to lunch, she said, oh, it's Tai Chi day. She would never do anything. I'm like, Tai Chi's in the afternoon. We'd be back before then, but she would never schedule anything. She didn't want to get stuck in traffic and miss her beloved Tai Chi. So why I ignored it when, she missed, that was, on me. Some things we don't want to accept, but the minute you feel something in your gut, I think that's the time to really speak up that all might not be well.
So a lot of times we have, clients that are, that I think sometimes they're very intimidated by
Yes.
professionals. And so can you give our listeners some tips on how to speak to doctors and other medical personnel?
So this is probably a bad question for me because I ended up firing my mother's first neurologist. And so that's my first tip. Do not be afraid to fire the medical personnel. You don't have to stick with that doctor. If you don't have a rapport with them, they have a horrible bedside manner. My mother's first neurologist, I mean, we were in a magazine over this issue. He was trying to force her, when we got the diagnosis, he was trying to force her to take Aricept. All she said was she didn't want to do that. That was all she said. And she did say it a couple of times. And he then says, and he never even made eye contact with us. He's writing out the prescription. His head is down. He never even looks at us. And then after she says she doesn't want to take it, he says, that's what's wrong with you people. Y'all don't want help. You just want to complain.
Oh yeah. No.
My mother's was the least complaining person you ever met. I remember gathering our little purse and coats, and off we went. And I got to the car and I called and I said, we are never coming back here. I need you to send my mother's, stuff to wherever I tell you. And here's what happened. That was very interesting. The guy that answered the phone, he said, could you hold on for a minute? He goes to another room and he said, please don't leave the practice. I'm going to put you with our female neurologist. And she, loves the old people. They will love, you will love her. She will love y'all. And we did switch. However, the problem was they knew he was a problem because as soon as I said I was leaving, I think he understood why. So that bothers me too. But I think we have to be very direct and, assertive without being aggressive. I didn't get up, yell and scream at him. I didn't go off. I didn't do any of that. I got our stuff and we left. So I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Before you go, write all of your questions out. I know a lot of practices don't allow people to record. That was my first thing. Back in the day, I would, record because I didn't understand all the words and everything. So if you can't record, take as many notes as you can, but be prepared by having all your questions that you need answered. If you don't understand what the side effects of this medicine that your mom is just starting to take, ask about it. Don't just accept it. You shouldn't have to go home after an appointment and get a medical dictionary and look all these things up. He should be able, or they should be able to explain to you in plain language what that is. If you don't understand, don't leave until you get it. I know that little thing, they get 5 minutes with each patient. No, you have to make sure you don't leave because you waited 6 months in some cases, to see the person. And I'm not leaving until I get all my thing. I'm not going to be rude either. But you can't expect us to go out when the next appointment isn't for, 90 days or 6 months or something, oh my goodness. So yeah, we just have to be very direct and don't be afraid. It's their job. And so if you don't understand, say that and try to get everything you can out of it. I have gone so far, if you're not sure how it's going to go, practice with your next door neighbor before you go. Seriously, because some people are really intimidated, just like you said, and there's no reason to be. They're people too, and they are people that have to treat us respectfully. And so that's the one thing I demand, preserve their dignity and respect them. They're people just like you. And so I'm all about being direct, but I'm all about not taking stuff from people either. Yeah, people have called me. I think AARP named me that I was a fierce advocate for my mother. Mm-hmm. So, but I wasn't. She raised us well. I wasn't ever going to be rude to anybody or anything. But you are absolutely going to give us the time and attention that they deserve.
Well, I think what a lot of doctors don't tell people when they're prescribing medication are the side effects.
That's correct.
So, one of my clients was a doctor, and he said, he took his parent off the medication because the side effects were worse than the disease.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really knowledgeable, about what the new prescription is, but you have to be even more knowledgeable about how it interacts with everything else they're taking.
Yes.
So I'm a huge advocate. Take the prescriptions to the pharmacy, sit them down with the pharmacist, and let's go through all of them. So
my pharmacist we've had for, oh my God, more than 20 some years at the one at the grocery store, and they know everything about us. And he would always look down the thing, but you have to really be able to understand what they're saying and make the best decision for you and your family, because that's, I don't want to say they don't care, but some of them don't care. And so, you're just a patient on the list. They open the door and, barely say a few words, but this is your time. And so you should get everything you need from that visit. But I am not afraid to, and people would say, oh, I didn't know I could not, I know fire them is a terrible word, but you can replace anybody. You are not stuck with this person unless he's the only doctor in town. And I drive extra miles to get the service and the respect and the questions, answers that I need.
So when you have a loved one that's in an assisted living or a nursing home,
Yes.
how do you advocate for them there? Because
show up, go all the time. When you don't visit, you or somebody else in your family, when nobody visits a patient, that is a key sign to them where they don't have to keep them maybe as clean as they should, or all these other kind of things slip through the cracks. That is a true story. So you show up, you let them know who you are in the family. You're going to always be here. Here's my number. If anything goes on, call me. You become a presence in their life, and you're always going to show up. And one way, my mother wanted to, live unassisted. So, eventually I had her in a group home. So when I was scouting out the appropriate group home for my mother, the one key sign that this was not the place to put my mother was when they said, and please call us before you come. That is code for, I'm going to get them all cleaned up before you show up. So no calling before you go. So that's the key sign. That is not the place to put your person. So just, be interactive. We had a situation where a person fell out of their bed, and they just came because nobody ever visited. They just came and put them back in the bed without examining them or anything. And so when nobody's coming and to check behind you, it can be a really bad thing. And insist that when something happens, give them a list of who to call in priority number of how you want them called. I am the primary caregiver, but I travel a lot for my job. If you don't get me, call my sister who lives 20 miles away, and just be specific about the order that you want things done and who can be given information about your loved one in an assisted living. And they will generally, most assisted living, they want that direction of who to call. A lot of times people show up, but that is not the person who should be getting the medical information, that kind of thing. So I think you have to be very clear about who's in charge, who has the POA and all that stuff. And that usually goes well.
So tell our listeners what an ombudsman is and how they can help you advocate.
So, I have kind of two words for ombudsman, like official. They really are official. And I'll say in some cases, a lifesaver. So I'll tell you the rest of that story I just started about the person falling out of the bed. So my cousin and I were in the room with my aunt. They have been roommates for a long time. The woman was not nonverbal, but she didn't say a lot. So when she fell out of the bed, we were like, oh no. And we, get the people and they put her in the bed. And then they left her there, didn't check on anything. And she starts moaning like half hour later. And that went on and on. We kept saying, she's moaning. Oh no, we'll check later. And they never did. The next day, she's moaning louder. They still have not checked on this woman. My cousin says, if you all don't do something, I'm going to call the state. So they come in, they look, and eventually they call the ambulance. You know where this is going. Her hip was broken. She died several days later. In the probably 6 years, my aunt and this woman had been roommates. She had 7 children. Nobody in her family had ever visited. So they hardly paid any attention to her. But of course, the children sued when their mom died. But that was such a really terrible incident for my cousin and I. My cousin ended up being an ombudsman. She wanted to speak she was a retired major in the army. Nobody wanted to mess with her. So they're really official. They are the people who come in. No assisted living or nursing home wants to see them coming, because that means that there is an issue that needs to be resolved. But I love them because their point is to be a mediator, right? They come in, they have authority in almost every state that you find them in to investigate, make recommendations about what should happen. Several people, I probably don't need to say, several people in that situation did lose their job over letting her fall out the bed and not attending to her for a couple of days or so. So it's really what I guess I would call complaint resolution, and not just not just, I don't like the food here, not like that, but something that is mostly, safety related. This is a dangerous situation. I mean, it needs to be addressed, and you have done everything to, raise it up through their own chain and got nothing. And so the ombudsman is that person that then tries to come in and mediate to find some sort of acceptable solution for everybody. I just love them. They make life easier. And when they step into any facility, the management knows they are not there for lunch or a social call. This is a, business, thing, and they will get to the bottom of whatever the issue is. Love them.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh my God.
What about other professionals that can help you advocate? Do you have more?
Social workers are great. And just had a situation in one of the caregiver groups that I helped to moderate, and wasn't a parent, but it was her spouse. He's on a kidney transplant list. He's dialysis, so of course he hasn't been able to work, and their rent had become overwhelming just on her one salary. But she's in this lease. They wouldn't let her out of the lease, so I kept saying, you need a social worker because you're going to end up getting evicted over this issue. The social worker jumps in. She gets her out of the lease and facilitated everything for her move to a $600 a month less apartment. Now, all she's got to worry about is when they're going to find a kidney, and instead of how she's going to pay the rent. So social workers really can navigate a lot of those things that we don't know. They know who to call specifically and how to get answers. Case managers, sort of similar things. They can help you find different services you may need as well. And then there are a lot of kind of senior care consultants out there that can help you do different things. And a lot of them, are free. But I would always say start with the Department of Aging, because they can help you with finding the right person for whatever your situation is. So if you don't know the number for your Department of Aging, start with them, and they can make the best recommendation, whether you need a social worker or some other kind of case manager, or somebody that can help you downsize and all that kind of stuff. So they can make the best recommendations and maybe have, a list right in front of them of people that they can recommend.
So Loretta, this is great advice. And so if someone wants to find you, how do they do that if they want more information?
So the easiest way to get me, I think, is my website, which is so easy, lorettaveney.com. There's a way to email me from there, or you can do the old-fashioned way and email me, lwveney@lorettaveney.com. And people are often very surprised about how quickly I respond. But I know when people reach out, they really want and or need something. And so though I travel a lot, I do, regardless of what time it is, and I'm going to Denmark on Thursday, which is 6 hours ahead, but I will get up and answer that email, especially if it's something really critical where somebody needs help. So I do respond pretty quickly too.
Well, I'm super jealous. I'd like to be going to Denmark too. So I hope you're having lots and lots of fun. Definitely. And so Loretta, it's been great having you on the show, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Yay. Thank you so much, Kim. You have a great rest of the day. All right.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.